Welcome to Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast, where we hear real stories from real people and we tackle all sorts of fun topics in the areas of business, marketing, entrepreneurship, mindset, the arts, and, well, life itself. It's amazing what you will pick up. Thanks for joining us. Well, welcome back, everybody. Darren Saul here, your host of Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast. It's episode 192. I hope everybody's doing well. I have a great show today. The lovely Irene Emily is in the house. How you doing, Irene?
So good, Darren. So good. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining us. We've got a great show today. Another very, very interesting show all about hustle and work-life balance. So the topic of today is why the hustle culture is dead and why we need to bring life back to life. So Irene Emily is a successful entrepreneur and business owner in Sydney, Australia, serving brands around the globe. She uses her passion for psychology and communication to deliver unforgettable brand experiences. Irene draws on her learnings and experiences in business building after 7 years as a business owner and lifelong student of spirituality, NLP, breathwork, and theta healing to coach, mentor, and activate spiritual entrepreneurs. She has hosted and facilitated multiple events in the entrepreneurial sector to educate, inspire, and drive social change. Achieving this in her personal endeavors enables her to bring a holistic perspective to the challenges that we face as business owners and spiritual beings. So welcome, Irene.
Thank you so much, Darren. That's
awesome.
I'm
going to just play on one word there. I love that phrase, spiritual entrepreneur. Can you elaborate on that for us? I love that.
It makes you tick, doesn't it? You
does.
Think to yourself, what is that and what does it even mean? Look, there is a movement going through the business world and going through society in general, which is around spirituality. Yep. And just, everybody kind of has their own definition of what spirituality means to them. But when I'm using that word, I mean in terms of this feeling that you're meant for something more. Mm-hmm. And some people may not link that to a sense of spirituality, but when you really dig deep in on that feeling, it kind of ends up being a definition of spirituality. Right. So I'm not talking about any particular type of religion or belief system. I am a art and science girl, which means that I do believe in the feeling and intuition, and I also believe in data and science. And if we meld those two beautiful worlds together, we have a really good grounded sense of truth and what truth is. So I feel like the spiritual entrepreneur has some sense and feeling around purposefulness and having some kind of journey around wanting to know what they're here for, or already going through that discovery and that journey. And most of the time it's through the birth of a business or through early stages of a business where that kind of journey comes in. Who am I and what am I doing this for? And all these questions come up. Why? And it is a spiritual journey and a spiritual process for a lot of people. So that would be my definition of a spiritual entrepreneur.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I think that's so true, because we're all analyzing more and more every day why we do what we do. Have we made the right choices? Are there alternatives? And I think it's all about getting in touch with who we are spiritually and, getting in touch with our self-awareness so we can make sure we're on the right track.
Yeah, 100%.
But before we dive into this topic, which is very interesting, I want to just get a little bit more insight into your story. Tell us a bit more about you, what you do, how you ended up working in this way.
Okay, cool. So, so I find it sometimes difficult to peg down what I really do, and I will frame it in the right way for you and your people. Oh, whoever's watching as well. Right, your people.
My people.
That's it. So, look, there are things in life that challenge us, and when you think about the biggest challenge that you've had in your life, it could potentially be a dark time. That's where I found happened the most change. And those are the kind of moments where we start to get really real with ourselves and ask, what really matters? What really matters? And is what I'm caring about, does that actually matter to me?
Mm-hmm.
And if I thought it mattered to me, who did it really matter for? And so I had a long period in my life, several years, where I was in this phase and constantly questioning, who am I and what am I doing here? And is this really all there is to my life? I was living a life of default up until I was about 25 years old when I moved out of home.
Wow.
And it wasn't a typical story of moving out of home. There was a difficulty at home in which I was suffering internally a lot. And it took a lot out of me, and it took a lot from me in order to change everything that I believed to be true in order to say yes to a better life.
Wow.
And so through that transformation, I learned so much already. And I feel like it's a part, I'm like, who is that? I have no idea. I'm so different from who I was when I was 25.
Incredible.
And that wasn't even that long ago. I'm 32 now.
Wow.
So through that experience, I felt that I still am on a constant journey of learning what we're here for and how best to live a life full of life, and not a life by default, and not a life that is chosen for us. And so through that experience, I started integrating that kind of work into my real work, because when I was employed, I was once employed. When I was employed, I felt like something was being chosen for me, and because people didn't really talk like this where I was being employed at that time, I didn't feel like I was, going to a place that I really enjoyed. And so if I'm going to marry that sense of life in with my business, what would that look like? What would my life look like if I was going to live in more alignment with my truest values?
Love that. Love it. And, congratulations to you for actually making that transformational change, because not everybody can do that. We all have things that we want to change, and we all struggle with things. But, for you to actually do that and achieve that, and now you can look back and say, wow, look how different I was then. That's a huge feat in itself. So congratulations for that as well.
Thank you, Darren. You'd be surprised how resourceful and flexible you get when you have nothing to lose.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'd love to talk about that a little bit more, like maybe a bit later. But like when you're at rock bottom, you literally, if you have nothing to lose, you have no fear.
Yep.
And you have all courage. And you can just, if I have nothing, I can literally build whatever I want. And that's really exciting.
Absolutely.
It's a really exciting place to be.
Love it. And I love that you brought in a lot of those learnings and that spiritual journey into what you do day to day with your customers and your clients. So that's, something that we're going to talk about now as well. But the topic of today, obviously, is a very important one. Why the hustle culture is dead. Because we all have this preconceived idea that being an entrepreneur is just hustle, 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 working 12 to 15-hour days, never stops. It's the only way to get ahead, and we seem to be doing more and more and more with the same amount of time. So let's chat about, why do we do this? What are the consequences? And is there a better way?
Oh, such an important question. Far out. So life is what you do every day.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you spend every day hustling for 15 hours a day, and you feel nothing but relief on Saturday and Sunday, or maybe you're working on the business on Saturday and Sunday,
yeah,
and then you go back to 15 hours of grinding, that will be your life, right? So there's that perspective. So let's just park that for a minute. There's a bit of an awareness there. We'll just park on the side.
Right.
So it's easy to get stuck in achieving, because it kind of releases our dopamine. We get to tick things off our list and getting into doing mode.
Yeah.
Right. I found for myself, and recognizing within other people, and whoever's listening to this may check in with yourself as well. When you're going into that hustling, is there a possibility that it's redirected anxiety? Because I found that instead of me feeling anxious about things, I was actually redirecting that into productivity. And so I got really good at doing stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a healthy way for me to be anxious, which means that I was outperforming myself,
Yep.
right? And so there's a healthy way of being anxious, and that was the way that I was managing it, and I was turning it into something productive.
Right.
So it could be a good check-in point now to ask, is anxiety something that when I hear that word, it kind of brings up something for me? And I think the next step to feeling that is also, is there a way that I can redirect that feeling into productivity into my business? Now, the step after that, if you feel like you're redirecting anxiety into producing results, amazing, because you found a healthy way of relating to yourself, right? It's amazing, but also to what end?
Yep.
To what end, right? You're chasing the dopamine, or you could be chasing the feeling that your parents are proud of you.
Yep.
We're
proving something to yourself or whatever.
Proving something, and there's no end to it, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, and some people want to live that out and they want to go until they're 100 years old, and that's fine. And some people not so much when they think about it and reflect, right? And so the key thing here is that we're here to grow, not to achieve. Our soul wants us to grow, not to achieve.
I love that. That should be on a t-shirt.
If we're here to grow, it's not about more we do.
Yeah.
The more that we do is not equal fulfillment.
Yeah.
The more that we
not even about more. It's not even about what the result is. It's more about, are we growing in the process regardless of the result?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. Are we growing in the process regardless of the result? 100%. Because it's not about the result. Yeah. Right. And even deeper to that, it's who you are being. Who are you being? Who are you being? Okay. So, right. And so as business owners, usually the hustle world is that we're reacting to whoever needs us most urgently first. Oh, there's that thing over there. I should be doing this. Okay, cool. There's this course I have to do. There's this client I have to attend to. Oh, someone's emailed me now. I have to go and do that thing. Yeah. Hang on. I haven't finished on my marketing yet. And so there's all these balls in the air that we need to kind of juggle, and we have to go and do so many things on this list that we created. And so it's really easy to get stuck into the demands of people and calendars and things that we have to do. Yeah. Right. And I have a theory which so far has been successfully approved and assumed. And I'd love to know what you think of this, Darren. Sure, I think I've actually may have mentioned this before.
Awesome.
There's kind of like a control syndrome amongst business owners. We love to be in control.
Oh, that is for sure. I'll tell you, I'll give you that for sure. I'm a control freak. Absolutely.
Yep. So we can be in control of how we do our marketing and who we work with and how much we charge. And it's amazing because we feel like we get to decide all of those things most of the time.
Absolutely.
Right? So we're control freaks. And so that's part of the hustle. That's all part of, it has to be a certain way. I need to control the outcome. I need to get this kind of result. I need to get this so much done within a calendar day, a week, within the hour. And so it becomes about rigidity and structure. And, and then we start thinking about more structure and systems and processes I put into my business, the more I can get done.
Yes.
And now then you start to become a hamster on the wheel.
Yep.
Right. And so how can I run on the wheel faster? How can I run on the wheel faster? I'd love to get off, but maybe some other time. But how do I, okay, cool. I'm going to start taking these injections and make my muscles really strong. And then I'm going to start, I'll get a bigger wheel. So it feels like I'm actually going further than I really
Yep.
Right. But who you're being is the hamster who's so tired and still running and running and running.
Yep.
And so there's an element of inflexibility there. But when we step off the wheel, and there's a space there. What now? Oh, I don't know. I'm a little bit uncomfortable here. I'm going to go back on the wheel because I know how that works and I know what I'm doing there.
Yeah.
But if we spend more time off of the wheel, and I don't mistake this for not working. It doesn't mean not working, because you can be not working but not growing or evolving still.
Correct.
Right. There's a certain amount of reflection that's needed on that.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we say when we say working on the business rather than in the business to a degree as well. You have
Yeah,
to
to a
step
degree.
back to kind of get away
Yes.
from the day to day and look at the bigger picture.
I love that. Let's use that, right? Let's use that and put a step further on that. Rather than being in your life, why don't you work on your life?
Oh, I like that. That's great. That's very cool.
You need to work on your life, not in your life.
Yep.
So take the time to sit and reflect. And you know what that looks like? That looks like sitting in a park, looking at the clouds and letting your mind go. And it will probably come up with all the things that you have to do for the day. And that's okay because you're used to thinking that way.
That's right. And that's actually a good
You
thing
know?
because sometimes when you're relaxed, you're in your subconscious mind. And that's when all the best ideas come to you because you're not forcing them. So that's cool. So that's like if you welcome those ideas, welcome those things from the universe because they've come to you from that place of subconscious mind, which is your creative place.
That's it. That's it, right? So you give yourself space and actually you learn to be more productive.
Yeah.
If you go slower, you get more things done.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? I thought I had to work faster to get more things done. Hang on a minute. What if you worked slower and got more things done? This is real. I've put this into practice before. I've seen a gigantic to-do list that I had to do. I went to the park for an hour and I came back and I'm like, hang on a minute. Half of this isn't really important. Doesn't need to be done today. I can move this around. I can readjust the expectation of that with that other person. That's no problem.
Nice.
If I didn't go to the park, I would have stressed my
because you would have been would have been in such an obsession focused mode that you wouldn't have been thinking about the bigger picture.
Right.
Just be thinking about ticking things off the list.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that relates to the hustle.
Yep.
That's how that in being in life relates to the hustle.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
You know, and after a while, you start to realize that actually achievement is illusion. Is it really like what I achieve? Is that okay? Good job, Irene. Well done. Okay, cool. What next? Okay, good job. Okay, cool. Let's go out for dinner and celebrate. Yay! All right, awesome.
Yay. But I'm going
go back on the hamster
I'm
wheel
not going to
now.
go out too late because I've got to be up early because I've got stuff to do.
Yeah, potentially, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and look, you know, it's not to say that you can't go out and get lost in your to-do list. Look, I'll show you my Asana right now. It's got stuff all in it, but it's also important to have the awareness of like, what's it gonna take for you to get off the hamster wheel?
Yep.
Some people wait decades into the future and they get unwell, or a family member gets unwell and they're like, sorry, I can't take time out of my business. And why haven't I been working on this until this point? Oh, now I'm unwell. I have to take time off of work. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
If you're waiting for something to happen so that you take that kind of action, you're probably waiting too long.
Yeah.
Learn from other people's mistakes, please. It's
it.
going to fast track your evolvement. Learn from other people's mistakes.
Yeah. Very wise. Right. But the trick, I suppose, is how do we balance this? Because, you know, we can easily accept that philosophy, but we still have deadlines. We have to achieve certain things. We have ideas and dreams and goals to achieve. So how do we find that balance? That's the trick, I suppose. And I suppose that's quite personal as well. Everybody does it in a different way.
They do, but I can give you a bit of a scientific thing on it, if that's cool.
Sure, that'd be great.
Can I whip up my whiteboard?
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. Now we're getting serious. Hey, I love it.
Have you had a guest do this before?
No.
Oh, yeah, I love firsts.
First guest with a whiteboard.
I love firsts. You can see that it's filling up the whole screen. Anyway, if you're listening to this audio, I can also explain it as well.
Great.
Okay, I've just drawn a little stick figure. It's pretty small, actually. Anyway, that's Saul. That's Darren. And okay, that's a guy named Saul. Anyway. All right.
Love it.
So, right. Okay. So you mentioned it's like a philosophy. It sounds like a great philosophy. How do we apply it?
Yep.
Have I reduced
100%.
that into a really basic way of asking the question? So, okay. So when we're in doing, That's how much our camera lens can see.
Right.
So it's that camera angle.
Right. And just for everybody listening, Irene has just drawn a circle around my head and my torso, nothing below.
Yeah.
Quite a small circle.
Yeah. When you go out and spend 10 or 15 minutes staring at the clouds and you start thinking of different ways of doing things, you start thinking this way.
Wow. And now she's drawn a circle that has got much more space around above my head and around my torso. So much more space.
I'm going to draw this to remind me of something. If you stay there for a bit longer, let's say half an hour to an hour, that's Irene's really nice spot.
Wow. Okay. So I'm getting more and more space constantly. Yep.
One more. Actually, there's one more after that, but I don't want to blow your mind too much. Okay.
Oh my Lord, look at that. That's huge. Okay.
Exciting stuff.
Exciting. This is like almost infinity.
Yeah, right. So the circle's actually getting bigger and bigger.
Yep.
And so if I could relate these to kind of camera angles. So when you're stuck in doing and in the hustle, and you're used to being in one perspective, which is this little circle around you. Yeah. You're not used to thinking in the blue, and you're not used to thinking in the green and the white or black. You're just used to thinking here. Yeah. And so your pattern of thinking is stuck in doing. The more that you spend off the hamster wheel, the more often you'll go into blue and into green. Right? And the easier it will be for you to think that way while you're doing stuff. Right? So then you start to see, hang on a minute, I'm going to apply green thinking now. And from this perspective, what I'm doing doesn't really matter. So it doesn't really matter that much. And so I'm going to let go. I'm just going to let go a little bit. That's really nice. What really matters? Actually, I'm pretty hungry. I'm going to go and have lunch.
So what you're saying
right?
is, are you saying that when you go and practice taking time out often, you start to build the ability to access that way of much larger perspective thinking next time you're in the doing phase?
Yes, it's a muscle.
It's a muscle.
Gotcha. A muscle. Yep. Right?
It's almost like the same analogy with mindfulness and meditation.
Right. And whatever gets you in that circle, maybe it's not staring at the clouds, maybe it's meditating, maybe it's playing with your dog. I don't know.
Gotcha.
So long as your mind isn't too active, maybe it's listening to particular types of music that usually gets me blasting somewhere. Okay, the reason why I drew these quadrants here is because these circles have been my applied experience with applying this theory from Ken Wilber. Okay. Right. So Ken Wilber talks about the 4 perspectives. So the first perspective is subjective. How does it affect me?
Yep.
I'm so stressed. Everyone's expecting all this stuff from me. I don't know what to do. I have to do all this stuff. Second perspective is we. Mm-hmm. How does it affect me and another person and the relationships that I have? If I send this email, how's it going to affect the relationship between me and that person? Yeah. Are they going to want to work with me again? Probably. Do I want to work with that person? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
Okay.
Third person is looking at things as if it's from a petri dish and data.
Uh-huh.
Does what I'm doing really matter? Is it actually making the impact I want to make? And what is the impact that I want to make?
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Fourth person is when we start to think much, much bigger. I'm going to purposely leave on an open loop because that's where the magic is.
And so what does that mean, live on an open loop?
I'm going to leave on an open loop.
Leave on an open loop. What do you mean by that?
I mean by that is it's an open loops are an NLP thing, which is, I'm just going to leave it unfinished.
Okay. Oh, wow. All right. Just leave it to chance in a way. Just leave it to synchronicity. Just let it be.
So, well, my intention there is that if you really are called to this kind of work, then that person is going to be like, what was the name that she said? Ken Wilber. Oh, what's that fourth perspective? I have to know that. And that's a good indication for you that you are ready. Because you're actually taking your own involvement and your own development into your own hands. If I were to give you this number 4 right now, I'd be spoon feeding you, right?
I see. Okay, gotcha. So that's what you're saying. Okay, cool.
Accountability and being able to take control of our own development is absolutely crucial to where it's going to be going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love it.
So I don't know what question you asked, but that's the answer.
So really,
that was my answer.
I mean, so what we kind of want to establish is, and of course, this is going to be very subjective for every different person, but if someone is so depleted by the end of the day that they have to force themselves to get out of bed, what are some strategies and tactics they can use to regain that energy and regain that zest for life and that space that we're talking about?
Okay, cool. If I may slightly pivot your question to, instead of regaining, it's actually finding a new way of being.
Okay.
Because when we evolve and develop, we don't ever really go back to the way that we were. And so if you find that you've gotten yourself into a funk, or like things aren't working out the way they used to, it's not that you want to go back to where you were, it's that you want to evolve up into the next level.
I love it.
Okay. So you're never going back. And even with the negative stuff in your life, okay, you're never really going back. You're always spiraling upwards.
Yep. Very cool.
Hopefully. You have to have the intention of spiraling upwards. So if you find yourself, and I'm assuming that the kind of, I'm gonna reflect my own experience on this. There was a time in my business, it was a 2-year period. That's what it took. That's the amount of pain that it took me to make change.
Right.
There was a 2-year period in my business where I was waking up and I was brainwashing myself to believing this is the life that I wanted. And at the end of the day, I'd be bawling my eyes out because I'd be exhausted, I'd be depleted. I didn't know why I was working so hard, right? And then I'd go to bed exhausted, depleted, not knowing why I was working so hard, and wake up and be like,
oh boy, I think I'll do it all again.
I got to do it all again. It took me 2 years of suffering.
Wow.
So, okay. All right. So, and I had to and part of that was because I wasn't really real with myself. I knew that it wasn't working for me, but I wasn't brave enough to sit and be like, why isn't it working for me? Because I didn't know what the alternative was. That is an absolutely imperative time for you, if this is you, okay? Because this is where transformation happens, and that's where revelations come in.
Wow.
But you need to allow yourself to hit ground zero. You need to allow yourself to get to the bottom, because if you keep wading around at level 1 and 2 out of 10, let's say you're living at a 1 and 2 and you're like, this is super it. I don't know if I can say that.
Yes,
I can. I'm getting the nod. Okay. This is super shit. And my life is not, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I wanted when I started a business.
Yeah.
But you keep doing the thing and you're kind of swimming around at 1 or 2. It can become your comfort level and nothing actually ends up changing. And that's when it gets dangerous, because then you stop dreaming and then you're like, why even bother? And then why try? And it's just, it's like sad. So you need to let yourself go deeper into zero. And that's where the scary part is, because it's like, I've never felt that deep zero stuff before, and I don't know what's going to happen. But the main thing that you need to remember is that you are so beautifully held, and everything is always working out in your favor. And you wouldn't be where you're at if you couldn't handle what's coming next. So you need to have some trust and have some faith in you that I didn't get this far to only get this far. So I'm going to go down to the deepest and have a really, really real conversation with myself. I'm going to let myself feel it all. If I haven't cried in 20 years, and that's the thing that I feel like doing, I'm going to do whatever it takes usually what I say when I'm working with the older males, they're kind of in a space like that. And I just say to them, go driving. Not that I would say that you should be having the car in motion and this, you could just drive to any other place, or if you're driving as well and you're a good driver, turn the music up really loud.
Yep.
Right? Do you know the vocal range of your voice? Right? Like, there have been a couple where they're like, I don't actually know. Like, I'm always just talking level, or I know what I'm like when I'm angry. Have you ever screamed? Like, Darren, have you ever screamed?
I
When
don't
was
scream
the
often.
last time you remember? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just not there. And sometimes we need to shake the body up in
Mhm.
order to get to that ground zero.
Yep.
So after that ground zero, that's when things start to happen. What do I really want in my life? If when you have nothing to lose, that's when you make the biggest decisions and the biggest transformations.
Beautiful.
So if you get yourself internally, you don't have to go and be a monk and go into the mountains, right? If you can get to that place internally within yourself where you have nothing to lose, then you can make the decision to make it forward. The decision that you make in that moment, it is absolutely crucial that you follow through with that, because you're then proving to yourself that when I have a moment like that, and I'm promising that I would never put up with this shit again, or that I'll have this boundary for the rest of my life, or I want to better, and this is how I want to live my life now. When you act on that, you're proving to yourself that you can trust your own word, that you have integrity in yourself, that you have accountability. Yep, right? So it's absolutely imperative that you actually take the action to that. It's not a fleeting moment. It's a moment of transformation for you that can absolutely change the course of your life. So you need to treat it as such.
Wow.
So
go on that journey.
Allow yourself to get to ground zero.
Allow yourself to get to ground zero and listen to what your body and your mind is telling you.
Yeah. I make decisions and stick with them. Okay. Yep. And sometimes sticking with those decisions means going back to your life and everything else is set up the way that it was. And it's really easy to get back into the swing of things because that's what you're used to doing and it makes sense. Yeah. But actually, no, I'm going to go and clean out my entire desk. I'm going to shut down this computer for a day. I'm going to go and do this other thing and then start creating how you see yourself being from now on. Not what do I want to do? Yeah. Who do I want to be in my business now? Yes. How do I show up in my business? How do I show up in my business? I'll tell you, Saul, we have a misconception that our time needs to be managed. It's not time management. It's energy management.
Okay. Well, clarify that.
It's not time management. It's energy management. If you're constantly looking at your calendar and what to do first, second, and third based on what hour it is, and you are exhausted by the end of that day, you're valuing your time before your energy. Mm-hmm. And that's when you get depleted after 2 years of doing that.
Of course.
What if you were to value your energy first and then your time?
I love that. I've never really thought about it that way.
How would you turn up in business then?
So then you'd probably tackle the tasks that took the most energy first.
Potentially.
Well, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you decide, actually, I'm going to leave that stuff till later and I'll do the easy stuff first. I suppose it depends on you.
Depends on you. Yeah. I'm a morning person.
Yeah.
Right. So I know I have the most energy in the morning. I'm going to go and do the big meaty stuff in the morning. Yep. Right. Because my energy is high then. And then, afternoon slump, might go for a bit of a walk. I'll just go and stare at the clouds for a while. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. I'm going to go and ease in with some article writing, ease in with some email replies. Oh, look at that. Everything's gotten done. I didn't have to push it uphill.
Right.
Oh my God, who knew life could be so exciting and joyful? Who knew I could craft my life and not have to feel like I'm listening to everybody's demands?
Love it. Yeah. I like that. Energy management as opposed to time management. Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a really big thing for me. And whenever I share that with one of my clients, they're like, oh, you're totally right. My calendar has been in control of me. I haven't actually been in control of it at all. I keep listening to what my calendar tells me what to do. And that's trap. That's a trap.
Yeah. The trap we set for ourselves.
I
love it.
Bless us. bless us,
Yeah.
until we know of a better way of being.
And I love that point as well, where you said life is about growth. It's not about achieving a result. Of course, achieving a result is important, and we grow while we are on the journey to achieving certain results, but the growth is the most important thing, and I believe that. I love that.
Yeah, that's it. Life is about growth, not about achieving results. 100%. For some people, it's about achieving results, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still a balance. You still have to, you want to achieve something. Like, you're not going to go and spend your 2-3 years of your life, and if you're not achieving a certain result, you're not going to look back and say, well, fair enough, I didn't achieve anything, but I still grew through that process. You might, but you still kind of would like to say, I actually got somewhere. I didn't just waste 2 or 3
Yes,
years
that's right.
not doing anything. But
Yeah.
but to your
That's
point,
right.
even if that happened, you can still go back and say, you know what, those 2 or 3 years weren't wasted, because this is what I learned from them. If you can apply that way of thinking and
That's right.
that way of that style of self-reflection, then nothing is wasted and everything is about growth.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. I love it. And anyone who doesn't understand this, they're probably okay with living a life by results and achievement. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
If this is like a bit washy-washy and like, what the hell, then you're probably going to go on that hamster wheel and you love it. I love getting the new biceps. It makes me feel good when I'm running on it. Some people are built for that stuff, and do you know what I mean? And that's how they get it. And they get to the end of their life and they're like, yeah, like I worked hard and I achieved all this stuff, and they get their pride out of that. Do you know what I mean? Some people, like, they get their kicks out of it.
Yeah. And they might be extremely self-aware and have done a lot of this work along the way, and they already know that that's how they're built, and they're very happy to be on that journey because that works for them, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's really about who are you and what do you want?
Bingo.
Bingo. I love it.
Did you know you had choice? Oh my God.
Oh my Lord.
Did you know
Who would have known?
You know what I mean? Like, we start businesses thinking that we have the freedom of choice, and then eventually start feeling like we have no choice at all and we're stuck. Really?
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yeah.
All right. Are you
So
really?
I'm reading a very, very good book actually on that topic. Something for the audience as well to take note of. And you might have read it already or listened to it. It's a very famous book. It's an older book. It's called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And it's all about exactly what we're talking about. And it's about the difference between running a business and just being a technician or having a job that's your own, but it's still a job and you're a slave to that job, rather than having a business where you're free to explore lots of other things and the business runs without you. So it's a fascinating concept, fascinating book. It's not always that easy to build, but definitely something worth checking out if you like where we're going with this kind of line of thinking.
Beautiful. I've been recommended to read that book for
really
years.
interesting.
And
Yeah,
it's
really
somewhere on the list in there.
Yeah, just started the last few days. Really good.
Beautiful. Yeah, and yeah.
Love it. So Irene, tell us a bit about what you do. Tell us about how people can work with you and what you do.
Yeah, so I do have a branding and marketing business, but that's kind of not where all this juicy stuff comes from.
Sure.
I have implemented it into that business, which is great.
Yeah.
I also coach and mentor people with spiritual businesses, because it's at that point where it's like, okay, I've kind of been running this business for 1 to 3 years and it's not really working. I've tried, I've wanted to start on my own, and it's not really what I expected it to be like. There's a lot of different courses selling me a lot of different things, and I don't know which one I should be buying, or I've bought one and I don't know what's going on, and there's no one keeping me accountable. And that's kind of the typical thing what happens when they come to me, right? Yeah. And so the first 3 or 4 sessions, because I have a marketing background, we're working through the marketing messaging and how you're operating in your business and what you're doing and all of that. And mostly people are coming to me with, how do I do better? How can I run on the hamster wheel better? Right.
Yeah.
And so we do focus on the techniques and the tools that we can, and the systems that we can implement. You know, are you using project management systems? You know, how are you structuring? Do you have staff? Have you thought about having a VA? Right. And then eventually it's like, oh, I want to do all this stuff, but my glass ceiling is here and I can't seem to get out of this circle that I've created for myself. Excellent. So now it's around session 4 that we start having a personal stuff around this. Yeah. And they're like, oh, now I get it. Oh, now I get it. And the penny drops. Now I get it. I have to change who I'm being, not what I'm doing. Okay. Now you change who you're being. Now the flow is coming. And click, 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 click. Amazing. Right.
I'm just going to repeat that. I have to change who I'm being, not what I'm doing. I love that. That's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so it's 6 sessions every 2 weeks, over 3 months. And that's enough time to be breaking through that glass ceiling. And sometimes not, just depends on how many glass ceilings you reach in that journey together. Right. So in those sessions, there is some mentorship, which means that I'm guiding you on what's worked for myself and for, could even be 100. Actually, I'm on client 200 and something now in my branding business, right? In branding. So, you know, based on what's worked for my business, as well as what's worked for my clients' businesses and all of this time, and for previous coaching clients. So there's some mentorship to tell you what has worked, as well as coaching into what's going to be working for you based on what results you've had in the past. What do you feel like you should be doing?
Yep.
What do you feel like resonates with you more? How do you operate in terms of an energy perspective? Are you a morning person or you're a night person? How do you feel connected to yourself, right? So there's also the coaching element.
Oh, fantastic.
Usually the spiritual business, they're doing yoga or meditation, facilitation, some other kind of coaching as well.
Reiki,
and so with
that kind of stuff.
Reiki, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so they're really open to having sessions with me with meditation, activations. I've got a shamanic drum for journey as well, right? And all of that stuff, I pack it all up with like NLP and just juice up that, you know, crank up the subconscious with really healthy like thoughts to really get you thinking in here. Man, I love this work. It's so good.
Wow, awesome.
Just go in there and pump it up, light up the fire, and off you go.
Love it. And do you find that most of the people that you've worked with have sustained this new path moving forward?
This comes down to the accountability.
Yep.
So remember I said, if you feel like you want to look up Ken Wilber to find out what number 4 is, that is a good indication for you that you take your development into your own hands.
Nice. So
you wouldn't see me as someone who's going to save you. You see me as someone who's complementary to your own growth path.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just a tool for you to use. I'm not here to save your life.
Yeah. You've planted a seed. You've been a seed of inspiration.
Right. And you utilize that. If you really want change in your life, you're going to be like, wow, Irene's just showed me this tool. I'm going to implement this for the next 6 months and see what my life is like. It's up to the person. It's up to the person and how committed they are to themselves. Nice. Right. Probably not the answer you wanted to hear, was it? No,
oh no,
it's got to do with me.
No, absolutely brilliant. Love it. I think this stuff is really important. And, you know, we have to look at things from different perspectives.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
And yeah, no one's going to save you. No one's going to save you. You gotta hit 0, choose to be in control of your own saving, and then find people who are going to help you get there. I'm just a cog. Nice. I'm not the keystone to getting you there. Do you know what I mean? Yep. We can't abdicate ourselves to coaches and they have all the answers. You know, we got to be in control of our own development.
I think a good coach will help you find it within yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, a coach is not there. A coach is not an encyclopedia. It's not a book of recipes.
Yes, that's right.
It's someone to spark a journey within yourself. but sometimes you just need a coach to kind of get you point you in the right direction.
Yes, just fast forward it a little bit, please.
Yeah, exactly.
If only I had the foresight to get coaching in the first year of suffering or the first 6 months of suffering, maybe I wouldn't have gone for 2 years, but I did.
Wow. But again, nothing is wasted. You've learned a lot in that process.
That's right. That's right.
You've grown a lot in that process, so a lot of what you do today is based on all that reflection.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Nothing is ever wasted. I really believe that.
Yeah. 100%. Me too.
Right.
Beautiful belief to have.
Yeah, I agree. Well done. Well, Irene, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all your great insights and your journey with us. That was fascinating. If people want to find you and work with you, how do they do that? What's the best way?
So if you feel super moved and you want to share something with me, you can email me directly at irene@ireneemily.com. So Irene Emily has 2 E's in there, irene@ireneemily.com.
Yep.
Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook and add me there and start up a conversation.
Great.
As well, if you want to kind of like just tickle in a little bit. Nice. You find me on Facebook.
That's your private Facebook.
Yeah, that's my personal Facebook page, and just send me a message. Hey, I saw you on Darren's podcast, and I dug what you said, just so I can place you. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. So,
yeah. Great. All right. Awesome. So email or Facebook, and I'm going to help everybody out by putting the link to. Is it Lee Wilbur? Did you say?
Ken Wilbur.
I'm going to put a link to Ken Wilbur's work so you can have a look as well and go and find out what number 4 is. And Irene, really appreciate you coming on the show. It was a sensational discussion, really enlightening. I really enjoyed that, and I hope everybody did as well.
Thank you so much, Darren. Thank you so much for providing this platform for me to share this information.
My
good.
Pleasure. And everybody, please check out all the show notes. Check out Irene's work. If you're interested in having a chat with her, she'd be only too happy to do that. And we'll see you very, very soon for another great episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. If you would like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Feel free to buzz me on 0414 659 800 or email me on darren@suspendedanimation.com.au. I'm always on the lookout for great guests who can share their stories and expertise with my community. Also, if you have been thinking about putting your own podcast together and not sure where to begin, look no further. I run a really simple 3-part podcasting course, one-on-one with me, where I walk you through the entire podcasting journey. You will end up with a fantastic new podcast to start sharing right away. Feel free to get in touch to discuss further. But for now, though, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.